I talk about the imperative of the education system change. The one dynamic that is driving the need for change is that the world has fundamentally changed in the last 15 to 20 years. Think about that. The world has fundamentally changed in the last 15 to 20 years. Technology and globalization has drastically altered not only how we live, but how business and industry compete. And it is imperative that our educators and our workforce providers work with and understand the business community. No longer can they operate in silos. They need to understand the skill sets required that underpin this dramatically changing landscape. And I mentioned the word skills. And I know John Doerr is here and is going to talk a lot about skills. And I think that's the key word here, it's skills. Our education and workforce priorities must be focused on skill development. And those skills need to be broad-based. We can't just educate children for a job. We need to give them a variety of skills that are transferable from industry to industry. I think if we are looking for that change imperative, we really need to examine all aspects of the education process. And I think there are no sacred cows. One of the things, many of you may know Dr. Daggett. He probably spoke at a number of places over the last couple of years about education. And he spoke at Messalonsky High School probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I was fortunate to have attended. And one concept that keeps ringing in my mind about the education system and how we need to look at it is essentially in all systems you have inputs and then you have outputs, and there's a mechanism in between that takes the inputs from the outputs. Now in our system, the input is our kids, and the output is the jobs and the economy of the 21st century. And if you think about it, the inputs have changed. I know my 6-year-old son is living in a very different world than I did 40 years ago. Technology, the environment in which we live in, how we learn has changed. If you look at the outputs, the jobs are different. And again, it's not a job, it's more what skills do you have? What value can you bring to the employer? But if you look at the system in the middle, I think it's essentially the same. If I can go back to my high school back in Pennsylvania from the mid-1980s, early 1980s, I'm probably going to see that not a lot has changed. Yeah, I mean, there's probably technology brought in and they're teaching new classes, but the fundamental way that we teach kids probably has not changed. So I encourage you, all of you, to examine your system, collaborate with business and industry, but most of all, focus on the needs of the student. I want to briefly touch upon some of the initiatives Governor LePage is putting forward and contemplating in his term. We fully understand the need for a trained, skilled workforce. It really is what's going to move our economy forward. And we could put together all the policy initiatives that improve the tax rate, that improve the business climate, but unless we have a trained and skilled workforce, our business community will not be able to thrive and grow and put that money back into the economy. We also need to be keen on the demographic challenges that Maine face. I'm a big believer that there's a red flag in terms of the demographics, both from a pure numbers perspective, the number of people, and from an age cohort perspective. Some of the initiatives we're looking at from a broad perspective is strong coordination among the Department of Education, the Department of Labor, and the Department of Economic and Community Development. Before becoming commissioner, Commissioner Bowen and I sat in offices next to each other. And the late nights in Augusta in January and February, we spent a lot of time just strategizing about how we can get education, business development working together. We're going to also undertake a thorough examination of our workforce development system, particularly the Maine Jobs Council and some of the workforce investment boards. We need to make sure training money is getting to where it needs to go, to the employees and to the students and to the individuals of Maine so that they can have the skills. Those funds must deliver the maximum amount of training to Maine workers. I mentioned Commissioner Bowen, and he's been given a charge by the governor to work on education reform, including examining charter schools, vouchers, a 5-year high school program, and increasing the visibility and role of vocational education. The governor also his biennial budget increases the state aid to local education by $63 million over the biennium from state aid provided in 2011. The budget also contributes $914 million to GPA, in GPA to education, maintains a commitment to higher education, and strongly supports scholarship programs. In closing, I want to reiterate that we cannot continue to ignore the fundamental changes that have occurred in the past 15 to 20 years. We must embrace change and make tough decisions on how we will prepare our students and children for the future. We owe it to them. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank for your flexibility. I probably have time for a few questions. So again, I appreciate your efforts here. This is the start. I participated in one of these at Messalonsky in Oakland about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was very similar. It was bringing together education, business, and just starting the discussion. And it has to start there. There has to be an open and honest and frank discussion about where we're going and where we need to be and how we're going to implement the changes to get there. So again, I want to thank you all, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And again, I said I probably have about 5 minutes for questions and answers. So thank you. Yes?
Good morning. My name is Scott Fair.
Yes. Yes, good morning. Good to see you again, Scott.
I have one request and one question.
Sure.
The question is vocational education no longer exists. It's called career and technical.
Okay.
We really appreciate it if current administration could make sure to say that.
I'll write that down right now.
Question I have for you is, many of the things you described this morning sound like what's already taking place in career and technical education across the state. What's the strategies does the current administration have to not only make it more visible, but really strengthen students' abilities to participate in career and technical education programs?
I think raising the visibility is the first step, and also providing education to the broader community about its importance. And the fact that I'm thinking about Waterville, it's in the back of the building, and it's viewed sometimes as a stepchild. I think we need to be more visible, also raise the education from a community perspective about its importance. There's a segment of population that, we have a 21% dropout rate. A lot of those kids, if they probably were able to get into that career and technical education, can be on the right path to success. And I met Tom Tracy here a few minutes ago before we started. There's a great organization where he's trying to, and I can't remember the, navigate the real world. That's what it's about, the real world. And the real world has changed. And it's very tough for an 17, 18-year-old to navigate the real world, especially even when there's some parents that, it's different. It's very different than when I was in high school than it is now. So we just need to do that education process. Any other questions? Well, again, thank you all. Hope you have a wonderful day, and we appreciate all your endeavors in this initiative.